After the war, Norman Boker didn't know what to do. He drove around the 7-mile lake near his home over and over again, driving his mother's Jeep slowly and carefully. It was a summer day, but the weather was bad. Along the lake were big houses with big yards. On the other side were nice houses, but not as big. The lake was beautiful. He remembers back in high school when he would drive around with his girlfriend Sally Kramer, or the times he would drive around with his friends talking about God. There wasn't a war, there was just a lake. Now his friend is dead in the bottom of the lake, freeing him from the war, and Sally Kramer is Sally Gustafsson. He drove by her home once and thought about stopping. He went to slow down, but ended up speeding up as fast as he could. Because of the war, he was able to tell time without using the clock. He imagined talking to Sally, catching up on things. He would ask her questions like what it was like to be married. He would just nod at any answer she gave. When it was time to leave, he would say,
"Okay, it's 5:34. Got a blast."
How'd you do that?
Norman Boker has many medals. If his mother wasn't so preoccupied with baseball, he would probably have a conversation with her about how he won the Combat Infantryman's Badge, the Air Medal, the Army Commendation Medal, the Bronze Star, the Good Conduct Medal, the Vietnam Campaign Medal, and the Purple Heart. He knows that his mother knows that many brave men did not win medals for their bravery, and that many win medals for nothing. He would tell his mother that all those medals were for common valor, not uncommon valor. If his mother asked what each one was, he would explain them and tell her how proud he was of each one. He would then tell her about the one he didn't win.
I almost won the Silver Star.
How's that?
Just a story.
So tell me.
Norman goes on to describe the Song Jabrong, which is a river in Vietnam. It was a slow, flat, muddy river, and that in the dry season it was like any other river, but when the monsoons began, it was completely different. For a full week, the rain did not stop. Not once. And the river overflowed its bank, and the land turned into a deep, thick muck. You would fall asleep on a high spot, and you'd wake up buried in slime. It was always raining. It never stopped.
Sounds pretty wet. What happened?
You sure you want to hear this?
Hey, I'm your mother.
Well, there was this one night by the river, and I wasn't so brave.
He tells his mother that he had the chance and he blew it. He continued to drive very slowly around town. The town seemed dead to him. He would ask the people in his town if they would want to hear about the war and the Silver Star he almost won. He imagines telling anyone who'd listen about the time they camped in a big swampy field along the Song Jabrong. How it continued to rain as the night went on, and the field turned into soup.
But the worst part was the smell. I mean, we was camped in a goddamn shit field.
Stop it, you know I don't like that word.
But that's what it was.
Alright, but you don't have to use it.
Norman knew this wasn't a story for Sally. Maybe his friends, but definitely not Sally. Thinking to himself, imagining talking to someone about how the field that night was boiling. They were under mortar fire. Shells made deep slushy craters opening all of the years of waste, and the smell bubbled out of the earth. He ducked down behind the mud, listening to his heart valves pump. As he stood up, red flares lit up the sky. As he looks out, he sees Kiowa's wide-open eyes slip down into the soup. For a minute, all he could do was watch. He eventually reached Kiowa, and all that was left was a knee, an arm, a gold wristwatch, and part of a boot. He tried to grab Kiowa's boot, but he was gone. He was slipping under. And all of a sudden, he himself began to slip under. He could no longer tolerate the smell. It consumed him. He released Kiowa's boot and watched it slide away. He sat there, all alone, listening to the rain and the explosion. Norman knew that the people in town didn't want to hear a story like that. They wanted to hear the story about the heroes, not common valor. Nobody wants to hear the story about the terrible smell. Norman continues to drive. It's not nighttime yet, but the lights outside McDonald's is lit. He watched a girl walk by delivering meals to people in other cars. He yells,
Can I get a mama burger and fries?
Push the button, I just bring the food. One mama burger, one small fry, and a Rudy Tooty.
Alright, thank you.
After the war, Norman Boker didn't know what to do. He could no longer find a meaningful use for his life. He couldn't keep a job for more than 10 weeks. He lived with his parents who loved and supported him. He ended up enrolling in a junior college, but the course load was too abstract, too distant, and nothing really tangible at stake, nothing like the stake of a war. He ended up dropping out after 8 months. He spent his mornings sleeping in bed, and in the afternoon he would play a pickup game of basketball at the Y. And at night, he would drive around town in his dad's car with a 6-pack of beer. He asked me to write a story about a guy who got messed up over in Vietnam. About a guy who just drives around all day and doesn't know what to do and where to go. A story about a guy who wants to tell the story but doesn't know what to say and how to say it. I tried to fit in Norman Boker and Kiowa's story into another story, but it didn't work. It was a post-war story, not a war story. Norman wrote to me after reading my writing on the whole thing. He said it wasn't horrible, but I was missing Vietnam, Kiowa, and the smell. 8 months later, he killed himself. In August of 1978, his mother wrote to me explaining that he was playing basketball at the Y, and after a couple hours he went to go get water. His friends found him dead hanging from a water pipe. I hope this story makes some good on Norman Boker's silence. I would like to make it clear that Norman Boker is not to blame for what happened to Kiowa that night.